All right, it's 7:30 p.m. I'm calling the meeting to order. Chappaqua Library Board of Trustees, June 16th, 2020. Before we start our agenda, I'd like to start by thanking Maggie and saying goodbye to Maggie. I loved working with you, 5 years of really good service. Your rational thoughts and your ability to decipher and help me interpret all the budgets was super much appreciated. You did a lot of good work for the library, and you helped oversee 2 huge projects, the parking lot and the construction. And I think the library will be very much indebted to you. So
thank you very much. I'm pleased to have been able to serve the community in this way. It's the library, the community. It's an important thing to me, and I'm really glad that I was able to do this.
Thank you. We're going to miss you a lot.
Thank you.
So good luck in everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
I know. You're still here. You're still here. All right. So with our formal agenda, let's start with the minutes. Are there any corrections? If not, we're going to approve the minutes as read.
Accepted as read?
Yes, accepted as read.
Thank you.
Thank you. As everyone knows, there's been a lot going on in our community and in communities all over the United States. And the Black Lives Matter movement is important to all of us, and also to the Library Board of Trustees and to the Chappaqua Library. The Library Board of Trustees has presented a statement that we've put on our website and on some of our social media. And tonight I'm going to read that statement aloud so that it could be added to our minutes.
Can you send me a copy?
I already did.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I sent it to you earlier today, Teresa.
Okay.
So you don't have to listen, as you don't have to take down every single word.
That's what I was hoping. Thank you.
Don't worry. Yeah. The Chappaqua Library Board stands in solidarity with the diverse members of our community. In response to our community, the library will be reviewing its collection and all other services we offer to ensure diversity. We will listen and act upon suggestions for new books, ebooks, music, book groups, discussion groups, programs, and author talks from all members of the community. The library aims to be proactive in its selection of materials, programs, and discussion groups to celebrate diversity and to educate our community. The Chappaqua Library believes that our library should be a safe haven for all members of our community, and we will not tolerate microaggressions or any other behavior that makes any of our patrons feel unsafe, unwelcome, or unheard. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we'll be moving to finance. So everyone received Dick's treasurer's report?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Dick.
Thank you.
Let's turn our eyes to the May 2020 statement. Do I have a motion to approve the May 2020 statement?
I'll move to approve the May 2020 statement.
A second?
I second.
So, okay, did you get that, Teresa? Ronnie?
Yes, I have it.
Thank you. Are there any questions or discussion on the May 2020 statement? No? All right, so we vote to approve it. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any nays? No. Thank you. So it's unanimous. Let's review the capital fund, the May report.
I have just a comment on the with the disbursements.
Yes.
I think it would be better if in the memo of what things were what the money was spent for, because when I first looked at $30,000 for desks, I was like, what? But I know it wasn't just desks. So I think like with the first one for Creative Library Concepts, it's a little more detailed, like cafe, meeting, and et cetera. I think we need to have a little more description because it looks like we've spent $30,000 on desks, and that's a lot of money. So just a little more detail in what exactly it should. That was probably, I'm guessing, Pam, that was for the children's room.
That was no, that was part. Yeah, part of the children's room. Yeah.
Right, the big so it should say something like children's room reference and other, just so that it doesn't look like it just.
It's a little more descriptive.
Exactly, and the public looks at that and they're thinking, what did they buy, the Resolute desk? You know.
I'll tell Joe to modify that.
Right, great, thank you.
Thank
And
you, Ronnie.
Also the one for NMB office environments, was that all just chairs?
That was chairs. Yes.
Okay.
2,000.
That
That's
was
the
all
new
those-
chairs, the black chairs for the cafe. That
Okay,
you know.
very good. Okay, that's that.
Any other comments or questions? All right, so let's move on to the June bills.
As I emailed everybody, 2 of the checks were not signed and not reviewed for Baker and Taylor. So we will pull the checks out of here, the $1,291.91 and the $859.22, and move that to next month.
Why can't we just approve those now?
Well, because they haven't been checked by,
Well, they can be, assuming that they get checked, can't we approve them?
well, maybe there's a problem. We have to, that's part of the policy that board members have to look at it, but that's part of our procedure, that board member
No,
has.
but yeah, but can we approve them on the, like, contingent
Conditional.
Yeah, thanks. Conditionally on our usual approval procedures of Dick and then me or another board member going in and looking at the documentation this week? Or
Well, it doesn't have to
work,
wait a
Pam,
month.
or no? Right. Instead of waiting a month, or is that possible, Pam?
You can, I mean, but Baker and Taylor, they'll be fine if we can actually, if you want, we can put it on the early payments or the pre-approved next time.
Well, they wouldn't be pre-approved, so
No.
you could call it early
It-
payment.
Pam, if you don't think, if it's not an issue, then we're not going to incur late fees for Baker and Taylor, then that's
No.
fine. Let's just move it to next month.
No,
Okay.
we won't incur Baker and Taylor.
Right.
No, we won't.
Then let's have somebody just do it right, set them aside. Somebody review the paperwork with their next round of checks for approval.
Mhm.
And then we'll just add them next month.
Mhm.
I
It doesn't
agree.
hurt.
Okay.
As long as there's no
Alright.
penalty for that, then I don't see a reason not
No.
to just simply wait.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the June bills?
Motion to approve?
Thanks, Maggie. A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the June bills? Any questions? No? All right, so all in favor of approving the June bills, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No?
No.
So it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, if you see the agenda, you'll see we've got a COVID discussion that Pam's gonna talk about now, but then we're gonna go into some more sort of COVID-related details later on, but Pam's gonna give us her general COVID discussion now.
Basically, the one thing about the COVID discussion is, we were informed by the state on May 28th that we couldn't use plexiglass as an SED run. So I found barrier protection that was in polycarbonate, which is what the state recommended in their memo. And I've ordered 5 units that will come here in 5 to 7 days, Bill. So they'll be arriving soon so we can have them starting our barrier protection. I've ordered the footpath indicators, the directional indicators, the social distancing signage, and everything is according to what we can get on the market. Unfortunately, everything is increasing in price, but we were able to get polycarbonate. That's my
Pam,
basic thing. Yeah.
may I ask, are those pre-constructed polycarbonate barrier units, not just sheets of polycarbonate?
They're pre-constructed. There's a face and then there's sides to it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
They're
you.
I have
pre-constructed
a
barriers.
question. And where are they going?
They're going on counters, the public counters, such as the circulation desk, the reference desk, the children's desk, anywhere where the public interact with, when they interact
Okay.
with our staff. And then tomorrow, we have a workman coming to install a temporary sheetrock wall between in the reference area at the main reference desk to separate the two librarians who sit side by side for social distancing when there are two librarians there.
It's temporary?
Well, it can be removed.
Okay, because I find that I have a few things to say about how I feel about us opening, and that's one of them. I think that I find that a sheetrock wall is just it's kind of like a Band-Aid, and I don't feel that that's the best way to do things. I think it's I just don't like the idea. I don't think that's what we should be doing. And I have a few things to say about how I feel about the opening. Is this an appropriate time to do it, or do you want me to wait until later after Pam finishes? Pam, I'm asking you.
Yeah, Pam W, you're asking. Why don't
Yeah.
we let Pam talk a little bit more, and maybe some of your questions will be answered, but then of course we'll listen to what you want to say, Ronnie.
Okay, thank you.
So
Well,
Pam,
Bill,
sorry.
maybe we should hold off on the sheetrock wall tomorrow. That was going to be installed.
Well, we don't.
I
Let's
think
not hold off on it yet. Why don't you continue your report?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then we'll.
Sure. Well, basically what we were preparing, with COVID, I've been attending webinars from different libraries also to hear the upstate ones who are at a different phase than us. Some of them are open, some of them are not. Some of them are still doing curbside. Some of them are not open at all. And in fact, in Westchester, there's one that's open to the public right now. We're watching what happens there. And some more of our neighboring libraries have actually come up with curbside this week. And they've actually opened their book drops this week, which have not happened. But we're learning more about COVID every day and how to safely work in that environment. And I think the staff is being well protected at this point.
out of curiosity, what the libraries upstate, what have they seen, or do you have any information about what they've seen sort of in terms of patrons coming in?
Yes. Well, in fact, I was listening today to not just Mid-Hudson, but up North Pioneer and a few others. And, their needs are a little different. Well, some are different. They have patrons who need to file for unemployment and have no computers. Some of their patrons have no TVs. Some have no communication at all. So they are desperate for their libraries to open. So they have had to open some of them for computer use because they literally have nothing else to use. These are some rural areas.
Right.
And they're, of course, in a different phase.
Right.
But are they seeing the same sort of traffic patterns otherwise? So let's set that aside, but in terms of families and children coming in, or people coming in to sit and read the newspaper, as the article that was circulated the other day sort of contemplated, it's, the community living room.
Right.
Are they seeing that usage, or are they just seeing people come in, grab a book and go, other than people who need direct computer access?
It's the two main purposes that they've seen people come in for: books, materials,
right,
and computer use. They don't see people coming in, well, they're not doing story hours, they're not doing any in-person programming.
Sure.
They have also gotten rid of their newspapers and magazines. The magazines, they're letting them check out and not use them in-house, because once they check it out, then they can, when it's returned, they can quarantine it for 72 hours.
Okay.
They're not letting them sit there and browse through a magazine or browse through the newspaper. It's too hard to clean paper that's been touched like that. But with items that can come back, they can quarantine for 72 hours, which is what they're doing. That's
So-
but mhm.
Are they, in terms of normal staffing then, do you need as many people there at one time? I mean, is there any reason if when you reopen to have 2 people at the reference desk, because there isn't going to necessarily be a line of people looking to need that same resource, at least immediately or for some period of time?
It depends how we operate reference, whether we have it so that patrons go into the stacks and help themselves or not. Whether we become the, we find the information for them and then go into the stacks and retrieve it, that's manpower. If we let them go in like the grocery store now, where the aisles are arrowed and directional, and they can go in and take their own material, that's a different story. Then we might not need as many people there in the building itself. Right now, we're operating on the 4-10 theory. Staff work 4 days and they're off 10 days, and then the next shift comes in 4 and they're off 10. And we have anywhere from 3 people in the library to 6. It depends.
And in going back to the idea of building a plywood wall at the between the 2 seats at the reference desk, that's because you feel that you need to have 2 people sitting at the reference desk?
Well, we've had that now, and it's become a problem. So we've had to socially distance. If you come, well, you can't come in. But if you can see, we've actually moved a card table to the one end of the reference desk and shoved one of the computers and the phone over in that direction, so that there could be 2 people there if necessary. They're doing work there.
Since the
And
library,
sometimes it's gotten busy with the phones calling for holds. And I want this book. Can you get me this book?
And that's where that stuff is triaged.
Right.
Since the library's closed, why do they even have to, both of them have to sit at the reference desk? They
It
could
has to do with
access-
how far the phone will reach. We'd have to then reassign or reposition into the
Right.
phone system and
Yeah,
have
well,
a cable
you could
run from the
just
building.
You could just have a different, set up another extension, and they could work someplace else.
And
so
the phone system runs on the web, so I have to have a data cable run somewhere. And I could.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, a temporary data cable is going to cost a lot less than a construction wall, isn't it?
You'd be
Not
surprised because you have to run. You know how high our ceiling is? It's got to run from my room across the high ceiling over to the reference area.
Well, it's also aesthetics too, and in the environment for the staff. And I think having another cable line makes more sense.
Well,
But just also, I don't mean to interrupt, but just because they're using the terminology sheetrock wall, which we have to use because it's not a flammable material, right? That doesn't mean it's just a plain piece of sheetrock. I mean, it might be painted, it might be paneled, it might be, it's going to be decorative. I don't think that somebody or Bill is going to slap up just a piece of sheetrock. It's going to look nice.
No, it's going to be painted in with the wall, same color as the wall.
Right.
It's going to be 6 feet high. It's going to have a wood top on it, a wood capping on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll follow the contours of the counter.
Yeah, so I think that it sounds unattractive maybe, but I bet once it's installed,
Okay.
it won't look bad.
Well,
I think it sounds like the right decision, frankly, and that it gives you the most flexibility going forward in terms of who is sitting where and what those staff members are doing.
Well, I think about going forward, we need to have a plan, and I'm going to address this when I have my opportunity to speak.
Right, and we will get into details for all
I don't
these
know that
things
we
in the
should
next section of the agenda. Okay, we will.
I don't know that we should be
Right.
rushing to put up a sheetrock divider between the reference librarians.
Well, I think we should be, and
Is there-
you'll see why when we get lower in the agenda, because
Is there
it's,
a bid? What's the bid cost for it?
I'm sorry?
What's the cost for it?
We do have a proposal. Pam, what was it? It was 1,400, I think?
I think it's 1,400 for labor and materials, yes.
Yeah.
and a lot of things, my understanding, might cost us more than other libraries because we have to follow another set of guidelines also through the education laws about flammability, which is our whole problem about plexiglass, remember?
Right, right.
Well, it was at the
to
request
use
of
that.
librarians to be socially distanced and safe for themselves. They requested it, but
Right.
Well,
I'll
I
look
don't
know,
at what
but-
I can do with the phones
did
and
they
move it to
No,
another
I-
area.
did they request a sheetrock wall?
They
may
requested a
yes,
barrier,
Well,
a
or
6-foot barrier.
some kind of way of separating them. I think we have to like think in it outside the box here.
Excuse me, we had looked at it, we first approached it as a plexiglass partition, which just would not have been practical. We discussed it with the staff members working in that area, and they had thought it was a good idea.
They
Yeah,
thought,
so, yeah,
Well,
I mean, I think it's up to this, if the staff's already okayed it, it's not for us to
Well, I don't
argue
know
with
that
them.
the whole
Seems like a
staff
minutia
does,
at the level of the
Right.
board that we.
Right.
I don't know that the whole staff likes the sheetrock.
Have you
Well-
heard from somebody, Ronnie?
Well, somebody just texted me now that they didn't ask for that barrier.
Oh, who's that?
Well, I'm not going to say because we
But
can't.
then, are they on the
Yeah.
board meeting? Are they in this board meeting now?
I don't
Because
know.
they should speak up.
Hmm.
Somebody has
Because
a
how-
hand up.
Are
Somebody has
people-
a hand up.
Somebody has.
Denise. Okay, I'll allow her to talk. Hi, Denise.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, yeah. So yes, we were really busy and we wound up both being at the desk at the same time, trying to take care of all of the requests for materials, and we were definitely too close. And so I thought that it was a good idea to move us apart by putting the equipment on a desk a little bit off to the side. And that's how we have it right now.
Right, but did the
but
staff?
Go ahead, you can ask.
No, I wanted to know, from what I understand, not everyone likes the idea of a sheetrock wall. That the separation, you need to be separated, which is without question. Right?
Yes, we need to be apart from each other, but I
Right.
don't recall being asked if we wanted a wall between us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Denise.
Just trying to find the best solution to keep my people safe. But oh well.
Right, because
Thank you.
safety is the most important
Right,
thing. And we'll get into some of more of the state mandated requirements.
Right.
So that might help make our decision. All right,
Well, I'll continue this. We'll continue this down in the
in the details.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to address the air handler? And then
I'll
Bill,
let
if
Bill
you
do
don't,
that.
okay. And then Bill, your report had a lot to do with hygiene and stuff. So if you don't mind, I'd like you to talk about that when we get to the hygiene and cleaning
Certainly,
section of the state mandates. Okay.
certainly.
All right. So Bill, if you'd address the air handler now, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, this is the air handler that was tied up a long time getting the permit, and we started to work and then we were stopped. When they resumed work, they found that they had ordered 2 out of the 3 duct heaters were ordered at the wrong size. The
Ugh.
engineer had specified the wrong size, but there is a note on the drawings, as there are on all mechanical drawings, that the contractor is responsible to measure in the field. So the contractor has acknowledged that it was his error, there was no extra charge. And rather than wait for the new heaters to come in, we don't need them now. I've directed them to to get the unit finished, get it started on cooling only until the heaters come in. They've been working on it, and they will be ready to start the unit before the end of this week.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Yes.
Great.
Pam, it's not on your agenda, but just real quick, because we're in buildings and grounds. Is there any update from the school district as to the construction contract? Have you heard
No.
a word?
No,
Nothing.
Nothing.
Thanks.
All right. I want to move on to the reports part of our agenda, but if Pam Thornton doesn't mind, I'm going to switch it a little bit and we'll move the director's report to after the New York State mandated guidelines and requirements, just since we could like continue the COVID discussion, but get into the details that everybody's interested in.
Yeah.
So as you all know, Pam had, at first we started the draft policy, then we realized it had to be called a safety policy. We've all been attending different webinars. We've been looking at the governor's websites. We've been attending library webinars, legal webinars, trying to learn everything very quickly, like all the other businesses are in town. As you may recall, but the public may not understand, there is no category for libraries, oddly enough, which is astounding.
Nope.
So we are a combination of retail and offices.
Right.
So we have to take safety mandates and plans from those two areas and combine them and come up with our safety plan.
Right.
Those safety plans / policies must be written down. The state has given us templates, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Everybody got an email with that. It's posted on our website for the public to see. It's posted within the library for the employees, and when and if the public can come in. So we're going to go through a little bit more detail so that everybody can understand all the hard work that's being done to meet all these state mandates, because it's complex and we can't always do what we think we want to do. We have to do what we're told to do. And
well, and there's also very little guidance for libraries.
yes, right.
From the
There is no specific guidance for libraries. So we've used a combination of library attorneys who specialize in that, labor attorneys, our insurance company, the state, of course, a combination again of office and retail. We've gone everywhere that we can to try to put the plans together. And Pam's done a great job. Usually when I say, wait a minute, have you filled out the state mandated safety policy? And she's like, oh yeah, here it is, right? So she's usually a couple of steps ahead of us. And so I appreciate that, Pam. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The agenda is sort of set up in the different sections of the safety policy, more so that the public can understand what we're doing. And I don't know, I know all the staff has seen it. I don't know how much they have looked into it. I assume they have, because they want to know what's going on for their protection
It's also on the
and
staff
safety.
wiki too, right? Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna we're gonna go through each section, and we're gonna start with physical distancing. That's the first section, and that's where we'll also address these barriers.
Right.
If you look at your copies, you know that, as everybody knows, there's a combination of 6 feet between people that everybody's heard about. We've all been into places where,
I just want to be sure I'm
Yes.
doing the right thing. You're talking about the safety plan template that this.
Right, the safety plan template.
Right.
We had to file one of these, or have to fill it out. We don't have to file it, we had to fill it out in order to even start thinking about curbside pickup.
Right.
because we had to sit down and think of everything that we had to follow as a guide. And New York State issued guidance for offices and guidance for retail. And we couldn't do anything until New York State allowed us to be an essential phase 1
Right.
service. And that happened May 29th, I think it was.
Right.
But yes, so phase 1, where it says people, each one has a section
Right.
people, and it has to do with physical distancing, not only just for staff, but for also anyone who comes in the building.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, it's probably better, Pam, for you to go through this because you're
Sure.
even more familiar than I am, even though.
I
But
seem
so
to,
why don't you?
unfortunately, I know it by heart.
Of course you do.
Right. Basically, as we're following also what the CDC has recommended, which is 6 feet apart at least for social distancing. And that includes not just in the main library, but in office environment, which is the staff areas. We've also, in order to ensure social distancing, no one can be in the staff room except one person at a time. But it says, you must have a total of 6 feet distance unless safety or core function of the work activity requires a shorter distance. And anytime they're 6 feet apart or less, personnel must wear acceptable face coverings, and everybody in the building has to wear a mask. That's also by the executive order of Governor Cuomo. Everybody has to have a face covering. And I've gotten face coverings for everybody who needs it. We provided it from the library funds. I've also provided gloves too. Then tightly confined spaces will be occupied by only one individual at a time unless all occupants wear face coverings. If occupied by more than one person, it will keep occupancy under 50% of maximum capacity. We are way under the 50% of maximum capacity right now. We're doing, there are 61 employees, and we're doing between 3 and 6 employees in the library at any one time.
And Pam, how many employees do you generally have at the library at one time?
It can range up to 20, 25, depending on what we're doing and what day of the week.
So on average,
Like when we're doing story hours, we might have 3 librarians in there. And just in the children's
so if there was
room.
so if there was no extracurricular activities going on a normal day, how many people would be there at one time? Plus or minus?
2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 20. About 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would read that as 20%. With the capacity of the entire building, not just the staff. But the
Yes.
building capacity is, I believe, 700.
Because it's based off your CO.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I know that other like churches and stuff, it's 25% of their CO now, but I wasn't 100% sure if the library was also 25% of their CO building capacity.
I've only heard 50 at this point.
Okay.
And actually that line that's checked off, that's from the state. We didn't write.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
The next part is post social distancing markers using tape or signs that denote 6 feet of spacing in commonly used and other applicable areas on site. And that what we're doing is we've gotten the markers are on their way. We've gotten the arrows on their way, but social distancing footprints are on their way. Right now, luckily, it's so sparse with 3 to 6 people. It's well managed. So we're going to have the tape and the markers out for the carpet. Limit in-person gatherings such as possibly using tele or video conference whenever possible. Essential in-person gatherings, meetings should be held in open, well-ventilated spaces with appropriate social distancing among participants. We have gone to Zoom for almost all our meetings. If we do have, we had a staff meeting or management team meeting, Martha and I were in the building, but socially distanced, everybody else was on Zoom. Very manageable. Establish designated areas for pickups and deliveries, limiting contact to the extent possible. And what we have done is we have pickup and delivery at the front area by the delivery people, mailmen, UPS, FedEx, and it's left there, and then we distribute it with one person going around distributing.
When you
We've
get
also
packages, do you like quarantine them for, like, what do you get from UPS?
We were doing that, but we haven't in the past few weeks. We've been basically taking them, unpacking them, throwing the boxes out, and unpacking the goods. We don't know how, it's been in the box forever, what's in the box, and we are wearing PPE to open the box, but whatever's in the box is quarantined. It's not been outside, so. And it says, list common situations that may not allow for 6 feet of distance between individuals. What measures will you implement to ensure the safety of employees in other situations? And that's where they're scheduled to work in the same office and their desks are adjacent. Then a barrier has to be placed between the desks. Staff will be required to wear masks and gloves. If staff need to use the kitchen, refrigerator, or microwave, one staff member. CDC guidelines regarding social distancing must be followed.
And you have the link right there.
The links. Yeah, I put all the links everywhere in case, because on if you have it on the web, it's clickable, so you can just click there. How will you manage the engagement of customers and visitors of these on these requirements? Curbside pickup is happening right now. It'll be at the front entrance, and it's working beautifully. We've only had a few incidents where people would not wear masks, but they could not come near the place. They had to wear a mask. And we have those signs posted that masks are mandatory. We have a table outside, so we put the book on the table or the video on the table, and they come pick it up, or we take it and put it in their trunk if they don't want us to come out of their car. It depends on the situation for them physically. Staff, placing it. The markers we have markers outside at 6 feet intervals if we ever get a crowd. We have not had a crowd, because everybody calls for a pickup time, and it's well managed. And we have social distancing outside as well. How do you manage industry-specific physical social distancing, shift changes, lunch breaks? That's very manageable, because right now our staff is so limited. There's a great distance. They don't pass each other that much, and when they do, it's 6 feet apart. Yeah, there are strict limits on the number of staff allowed. And again, we have the CDC guideline there. And staff are not allowed to congregate or eat in the staff room. And we're up to,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on, so far, I guess so good. We've heard positive things that the staff are managing within these guidelines, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know you haven't had that many people in yet, but so far so good.
So far so good. And so far curbside pickup is really picking up, and I think people are actually appreciative of the service at
They're
this
very
point.
appreciative. I've seen comments on Facebook, and I've heard from various people. So.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Ronnie, this is where you would talk about the barriers some more. I mean, I feel comfortable letting Bill and Pam do what they're doing. Sheetrock is an approved material. I'm sure it'll be aesthetically pleasing, and it can also be removed when necessary. I think it's cost effective. I don't know what other kind of barrier we could build, but
I concur.
Do we have a sense of when we'll go to the next phase of actually letting people in?
Okay.
No, because you know why? We don't have the barriers in place yet.
Right. But like, even still, I guess we were, because we're in phase 2, we'd be allowed to let people in today if we felt that we were set up to do that.
Correct, but unfortunately we're not, because we don't have things like these barriers, whether it's sheetrock, polycarbonate. We know that our staff wouldn't be safe, and we would be worried our patrons wouldn't be safe.
Which is why we're not fully open yet.
Correct.
And when do we have some expectation about, I guess we know when we're getting the barriers are coming in the next couple days.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have some expectation of when we may go to the next step of letting patrons in the building?
I'm thinking sometime maybe in July.
Okay.
I will tell you though, the first day we were in phase 2, we had 4 people try to come in the building because they said, "You're phase 2 now. We want to come in." We had to turn them away, but It depends. It depends if we have an outbreak, if we have an infection in the next few weeks, we'd have to go back down. But I'm saying maybe July. It just depends.
Right, like mid-July.
And in Pam Thornton, in your vision, once you open to have allowing some amount of patrons, because I'm assuming you would still limit the number of people, even though
Absolutely.
right, even if at that point we're allowing some amount of patrons in the building. If you're running with, sounds like 4 to 6 staff now, how much staff do you think you would need when you're allowing some amount of patrons in the building?
We'd have to still try to see if we can do the 410 scenario. We would have to allow more staff. I'm not sure of the number, but we'd have to allow more staff to cover, especially checkout. Because checkout is where, you're interacting with public and they want to check the book out. We'd still do curbside pickup too. That would not stop. And then we also have to see what kind of response we'd have, and if we do appointments or if we just allow, like so many people in the building and then they have to wait till somebody leaves, limit the number of hours or minutes that they're in the building. That has to be worked out yet.
I'd really like to, I have something I'd like to say, and I think it's an overall concept, and I think it's best if I share that now instead of like piecemeal answering your question about how I feel about the sheetrock. Okay, so
Go
if
ahead.
you can allow me to do that now, and then you'll understand what my vision is here and how I feel about the whole situation. First, I want to preface this by saying that the staff has done a great job connecting with the community since the pause began. Curbside pickup is going well and is appreciated by library patrons, as I mentioned. Opening is not a contest. I'd rather the library be the leader of smart and safe than be the first for the sake of being first. We really have to stop and come up with an overall plan and vision for the future. This is not the time for Band-Aid solutions, and this is the time to reimagine library service. This is the time to engage the community and begin the ALA initiative of libraries transforming communities, which we discussed several years ago and we were supposed to be doing during construction, but that didn't happen. That would entail surveying the community and holding focus groups. It would be a good use of staff, actually, that aren't working in the 410, that they would have something to do if they were involved with focus groups. And that seems also to be timely with the current climate of inclusion, diversity, Black Lives Matter, a way of engaging the community. I believe it's time to look at the redesign of the space. A sheetrock wall, as I said, for reference librarians is not the answer in the way we should proceed. We need to look at possibly new furniture. Actually, we've been needing new chairs in that open area. But before we start buying things, we need to look at the space with fresh eyes and in an organized fashion. And of course, we may have to adjust our budget. And I know these are difficult decisions, but we must proceed carefully. The health and safety of the staff and the community must be our priority. And the insurance agency, when I read through the whole booklet from Reagan, recommends that we make decisions carefully and continually assess the actions that we take. And the old normal is not coming back soon or at all. So overall, I feel like we have to have, before we start doing piecemeal things and spending money here and spending money there, that we really have to take a step back and look at the whole picture before we decide, like, okay, we're going to do this, but well, we don't know if we're going to open in July. We don't know what's going to happen. There are still cases. Things may change. We don't know this. And I just feel like we're just little bits and pieces here and not having like a vision. And I think this is an opportunity for us to really look at the whole picture of the library and what library service can be. So that's my overall feeling on this, and it will impact any way I feel about these like the sheetrock wall. You heard from Denise, and I've heard from other people, they don't want to have a wall like that. So that's my position, and I wanted everyone to be clear on that.
All right, thank you, Ronnie. Are you suggesting we close the library for a year and have focus groups and surveys and reimagine and then open?
No, I'm not.
Because that's how long it's going to take.
Well, I think we may have to do it for the rest of this year. We just may have to.
But close the library.
We're not closed. We're having curbside pickup. That we're providing that service. We're providing.
So have no other services to patrons. I'm just trying to understand.
Well,
have no other services to patrons other than curbside pickup.
No, we continue the online programs that we're doing. We're still doing those. All the children's department, the online programs, but include at this time, like start doing those focus groups. That would we should have been doing that anyway because of the new spaces, and we didn't. And this is a good opportunity now for us to use the people who, you know, aren't coming into work, and it would give them something to do. You could have staff members with community members and do Zoom situations.
Yeah, but it's not part of everybody's job description to do focus groups. We can't just suddenly tell somebody, you know, who's trained for a particular job, now you're doing focus groups. We don't have the right to do that.
Like the reference desk is being used now, even though the library isn't open, because it's the center point of where people are being, you know, calling up and asking questions for help. And I think that you know, putting in a barrier between those two things seems like a no-brainer.
Well, I think I'm going to go back and answer Pam Wright's question. That's, you know, I've already said how I feel about the barriers. That's your opinion, Maggie.
So
Yeah, I know. I also think that this feels like, you know, that we, the board, are getting into some minutia of how the library is supposed to be operating that really lies in the hands of the director and the staff.
We're responsible for the safety and.
Of course we are, but we put a lot of that decision-making power into the hands of the director.
So I think there's two steps here. One, I mean, there are some temporary things that we need to do in the meantime, right? And so I concur that a temporary barrier of some sort is the right thing to do currently. But I also understand Ronnie's point of sort of long-term vision is while we're doing things temporary so we can continue to operate, there is some value to taking a long-term vision of that you can't do immediately, right? If you want to open immediately, you can't do immediately reconstruct the whole floor plan. But there is something to be said of maybe we should have people think through long-term, is there a better setup and maybe some things that over time we would prefer to have redesigned. So in the short term, absolutely we need some immediate barriers so that people can work and we can get the library back open. But there's definitely something to be said for some long-term vision in the process. You know, particularly with the construction that's not done and sitting there half undone, you know, maybe it is time to just stop and to make sure the long-term vision works while we're dealing with the short-term problems.
We also have
we also have a long-range strategic planning committee, and they are due to reconvene, I think, January 2021.
So
perhaps we can have them reconvene earlier than normal, you know, but that is their job also.
And
there could be a board member on the committee, but
so
you know,
maybe this
it's
is
not
something that
usually
should come up as part of that. When I mean,
right.
Given that that's 6 months out,
well,
this should probably be on their agenda.
You have to
right, or have them convene earlier than they would have convened, right? Because these are different times. But you know, there are people who are supposed to be doing long-range planning.
Well, we have to establish a new committee for long-range planning.
I know, but we can,
Yeah,
right?
and I
But,
think that's
you know,
a really
it's not
great
just the purvey of the board. It's community members. It's a larger group
That's what
than just the board.
That's what I'm saying by having these community.
Right, and we do have it. It's our long-range planning committee that exists.
But I think also having the smaller groups, like part of what Libraries Transforming Communities, the initiative is to get community input. And that's
Right, that's
something-
what we do with the long-range planning.
No, but
committee.
that's one committee. I'm talking about small group, like focus groups. And
Okay.
it's a whole.
Yes, and that's a good idea. That committee can have as many focus groups as they want. Like,
Can I
In the means-
say?
In the
Right.
meantime, we need to get the
Right.
library open.
right,
Can I say that
Yes.
Libraries
Yes.
Transform is not about the library, it's about the community. It has nothing to do with how the library functions. It has to do with transforming your community. That's what the basis is, not
Yes,
the
but-
library. So it has no effect on how the library runs or operates because it's
That's not
transforming
100%
something in the
true, Pam.
community.
That's not 100% true. It does have to do, the library is part of the community. So I've investigated it. So I think we're looking at it in a little different ways. But
all
that
right. Well,
aside,
Ronnie,
I like the
I-
idea of the strategic committee, the planning committee, starting sooner, and then maybe they'll break into different groups. But I also think it's a good idea to engage the community more because of the other things going on that we've talked about earlier. So that's my position.
We should totally
Okay.
engage the community. We should
Right.
totally start on our long range plan, but we also right now have a more immediate, issue about how do we get the library open and serving the community? And I think that that's really more important right this very minute.
Well, it is important, but it's important to do it in the best way, the safest way that's going to make the most sense. And that's why I felt important to talk about this is the time before you start spending money in places here and there and not having a vision. for what's going to-
Unfortunately, I don't think that we have the luxury of doing a long-range plan before we figure out how to open the library in this particular situation. We need to act. We need to act responsibly, but we need to act more quickly than we will be able to do by doing focus groups and a long-range plan.
And I appreciate Ronnie's point of, not just going and throwing a bunch of money that we find, 3 months later, wow, why'd we buy that? So I do appreciate her sense there. At the same time, if, Pam Thornton, I mean, the wall, the non-plexiglass, whatever, polybicarbonate stuff.
Polycarbonate, yeah.
What other needs do you have besides those two things to provide appropriate distancing and other costs that you see us incurring for barriers or other COVID-related
Well,
expenses?
Teresa just emailed me that the toilets need lids on it. We don't have lids on the toilet, so we have to have lids on our toilets. We have, a lot of PPE. We're buying PPE like crazy.
And that's what, gloves and masks?
Gloves and masks. We also have face shields in case we need them.
right. And may I say that's because through the governor's mandates, the employer, the library, is responsible for providing them for all staff. And we even probably have to have them available for a patron who doesn't have one.
Well, and there, you can make an
know.
accommodation. We have to make an accommodation for those who can't wear masks. There are some who are, challenged or can't wear masks. And so we have to make an accommodation for that. We also, a room that's a clean room, that you make sure you have it super clean a lot of times. We have to look at our keyboards, our mice. We have to look at the computers. We have to look at cleaning supplies. We have to look at mostly social distancing with the barriers. We have stanchions coming to help with that as well. We have a lot to do with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's to my point is, are we looking at, I'm trying to get a gauge of additional costs we're incurring. I mean, because it does feel a little like one off here and one off there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So overall, what has the increased cost to the library been, and how much of that is ongoing operating additional costs, and how much of that is a capital one-time purchase?
Cleaning is is going to be increased immensely, and that's ongoing costs. The one-time costs are the barriers, the floor markers, the directional signs, signage, the distancing barriers in place. That's the
So
one-time cost.
is there a budget or a list of all of those items that you've looked to purchase and what the total cost on that is?
I can get you that. I know the 5 barriers right now were $1,800, not including shipping. So yeah, but I can get you all that.
Because I mean that's a little bit of what I would like to see, is to make sure, okay, so here are the things we'd like to purchase, and here are the costs for all of that. And because I think we do need to approve sort of it as a big picture, a COVID capital expense versus, hey, I bought this, and hey, I was going to buy that.
Right.
That's a little tricky, actually, because the rules are that the director
Sure.
can make decisions on a one-by-one basis, as opposed to like saying that there's this big, it's not really capital.
Yeah, I think it is capital, though. I mean, it's a capital, it's a project, right? I mean, it all goes together. And I mean, once, if suddenly she spent $10,000 that's outside of the budget, I think we need to have some sense that that's what the cost is going to be, and acknowledge it, versus just suddenly being $10,000 outside of budget.
At the same time, you don't want to hamstring the director who is trying, is working diligently to get the library open again. And
no, I concur. I concur with you, Maggie, on that front. I mean, I'm not talking about a box of gloves, each one, but I as you're adding up barriers and walls and those things, there is a larger expense that, whether that comes from our operating funds or our capital funds, having some idea of what the overall expense of all this stuff, once you put it together, really looks like. You can nickel and dime $100,000 away.
yes.
All right, I think all these comments were very productive. Thank you, Ronnie, for your statement. Let's move on to number 3, protective equipment. We've kind of touched on it a lot. I mean, we touched on the gloves and the face coverings.
Right. We have to provide PPE, and we have PPE for all staff. We just keep, buying more of it as needed. And they must be replaced or cleaned. The cleaning is on the staff, because we have given them cloth masks for everybody. They have to take that home and clean it. We're not, laundering them for them. But they also have disposable masks too. And
do you have out of curiosity, the governor has said that you can turn people away who are not wearing masks?
Yes.
And what's your plan in that regard? I'm not talking about staff, I'm talking about patrons.
We have.
You can. And
we've had staff, patrons and delivery people come, and I've turned them away because they were not wearing masks. Right. And that's a given because of the executive order.
I think patrons should be providing their own masks if they come in. I don't know that we have to be providing masks for people.
No, we encourage them to. Everybody should have their own mask, but there are times when someone will say, I forgot it, or I didn't have it, or I'm walking by and I didn't know.
Go to the hardware store and buy one. At the hardware store down the street.
All right. Limit the sharing of objects and discourage touching of shared surfaces. And what we're doing is wiping down keyboards and mice right now in between shifts, in between when people touch the phone, wiping it all down. And we have enough Clorox wipes. Thank you, Bill. We got tons of Clorox wipes, which are very hard to go.
What about chairs? You don't clean those off?
We don't clean the chairs. The chairs are not a porous fabric. Well, they're chairs. No. Hygiene and cleaning. Next, we are adhering to the hygiene and cleaning sanitation requirements. Bill also created a checklist for the custodian and for our services that have to come in during the custodial vacations or sick out. And we have a cleaning log that we have, and we're keeping it in my office. Provide and made hand hygiene stations. We have one of our bathrooms. Luckily, with the renovation, we have individual bathrooms which have paper towels, not hair dryers. We have automatic no-touch sinks, automatic no-touch soap. One of the bathrooms has been propped open as a hand washing station. The other 3 are being used by each individual department for contact tracing. And so that's taken care of. And we are lucky that we can social distance by having individual bathrooms.
Right. And that, for example, that hand washing station, that's mandated.
Yeah.
Right.
We're lucky that it was easy for us to comply.
Yes. The only thing now, we need toilet lids. And we conduct regular cleaning and disinfection at least daily or every shift or more frequently. And what our custodian's doing is right now, because it's only us in the building, he's cleaning the bathrooms at least twice a day right now. All right. We're up to communication.
Yeah. Did Bill want to add anything? I know you had a nice detailed report or.
No, I just, we just can't let up. We've got to keep following the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Uh,
Thanks, Bill.
Yep.
And we did get hand sanitizer. We're trying to get more hand sanitizer because when patrons are allowed to come in the building, they'll have to be able to use hand sanitizer right before they come in, right there at the entrance with their mask on. Communication. To ensure that the business and its employees comply with communication requirements, we agree to do the following. Post signage throughout the site to remind personnel to adhere to proper hygiene, distancing, and appropriate use of PPE and cleaning and disinfecting. Yes, we've done that. Establish a communication plan for employees, visitors, and customers with a consistent means to provide updated information. We're doing email blasts, we're doing the website, we're doing Facebook, we're doing our social media, and we're getting a lot of feedback from the communication that we've been sending out. Maintain a continuous log of every person, including workers and visitors who may have close contact with other individuals at the work site or area. We're doing a daily log. They have to log in with the questions that have been provided by CDC about their COVID exposure and their temperature for staff, not for patrons. That's not going to happen. But we are taking temperature right now of workers. Like Bill comes in, he has to log in. Joe Gallo,
When I came in to review checks.
We logged you in.
So you're not doing a customer log?
No, it's very, we had many discussions with this with legal and with the state sites. It's not mandated by the state sites. And also it's,
I know it's a privacy issue.
It's a privacy issue and it's not mandated by the state sites. So that's something we can't do. Maintain a continuous log. We are continuing the log. If a worker tests positive, they must immediately notify state and local health. We have to notify state and local health departments about contact tracing and cooperate with that, including notification of potential contacts, which is why we're trying to do the 410, so that when the same people are working in the same shifts. Okay. And then screening process, we are having every person who comes into the building answer the questionnaire, the 3 questions, and the temperature, who are right now.
Their temperature, do they take it themselves? Or
we can. We have 10 contactless thermometers. They can take it themselves, or we have staff who take each other because it's easier. Mm-hmm. And contact tracing and disinfection of contaminated areas to ensure that business employees comply. We have a plan for cleaning and disinfection and contact tracing. We do, and we're following the guidelines from CDC. And how do we trace close contacts in the workplace? We have to inform them. Yes, we are following the CDC guidelines. And if a staff member tests positive, it has to be reported.
I meant to tell you, I saw a typo it's in the non-contact thermometers. Mm-hmm. I'll send it to you, Pam.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, and I found another one I'll send to you.
Sure, that's great. Okay. So that's the plan.
And then after Pam and everyone, the staff put this plan together, they have to, as she said, they don't send this plan to the state, but Pam has to sign an affirmation that they did the plan, and that affirmation goes to the state, right?
Right. And we also keep this in a binder in my office. Bill created a lovely binder of all these plans and materials and chemicals and everything. It's in my office.
Yes,
If
if
anybody
a
needs it.
state inspector does come into the building, we have to produce this document.
Right.
Also, should it be available to people who come into the library?
They can foil it. Anybody can look at it. They can foil it. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of this information is already on the website.
Right.
Right.
We've already put it up so that patrons can review it and
We have
then
our
decide if they want to come in.
We have our COVID website up there.
Okay, and you have a separate section for all of that on the website.
Yeah, it's all up already.
All right.
Okay. So I guess employee guidelines was in there, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's
looking
all
at
part
what
of
it looks
that.
like.
It's all
Right.
part of the state guidelines, along with the
Right.
employee guidelines, the potential outbreak procedure, and the New York State. Right.
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 So thank you for indulging us in going through that step by step. But I think it's just really useful for everyone to see how detailed it is.
Right.
Right.
And it's a living document. Things,
Right.
change.
Yes. Yes, right. And yeah, they certainly could change per phases or any day you want it to change to improve it.
Right.
See, you did your daily, you got your employee checklist that you have online, correct?
Yes.
So
it's
your
online.
employees do everything online.
If they want to do a piece of paper, we do the piece of paper, and then I transfer it into the online so that it's all there in a spreadsheet.
And then Pam included for us from the New York Forward website, all of the summary guidelines and the, what do you call them, non-summary guidelines.
Yes.
So that if everybody wants to look through those checklists and read the guidelines.
The
for
mandatory and
retail
best
and for
practices.
office.
Right.
Right. So that's where they gleaned this safety plan
Right.
from.
Oh wait, there's a
Right.
chat. There's a question or what?
Yes.
As of July 1st, this is from Marge. As of July 1st, it is my understanding staff will no longer be paid to work off-site. That means we have to go back to full staff starting July 1st. Is that correct? Well, that's going to be part of my report.
Yeah,
Because
so-
right.
Great. Should we you want to just move on to your report then?
Sure.
Right, and address Marge's question too?
Because
Okay.
as of right now, every staff member is being paid for the schedule they had through June 30th. As of July 1st, it's a new fiscal year, and so we haven't had the budget approved yet. We don't know what the vote was tonight yet, and we don't know who the new trustee is. But as of July 1st, the schedules are not there anymore. And I was also going to talk about furloughs for the specific classes, civil service classes of employees, and at least temporary furlough. I'm saying till September. And 2 clerks who wanted it in circulation. But as of July 1st, what do we do? Because there's no schedules. Some of them can work from home. Some of them have to come in. But if we're going to base it on hours worked, we have to go back to having people in or not work, or hours reduced for certain classes. Well, the first thing, though, is I will talk about the furloughs. The pages, the student pages, the adult pages, I want to furlough until at least September. Because the student pages, there's so few of them, and also some of them are leaving, but I don't want teens in the library right now. The adult pages also I don't want in right now because the clerks are shelving, and that might change, but at least for 2 months. And the other are the theater custodians, because we don't have any programs. We're not having any programs. There's nothing for them to supervise at this time. So at least until September 1st, I would like to furlough those 3 classes. The other 2 are 2 circulation clerks have asked to have a furlough until at least September.
So they asked for it because I wasn't clear in the language.
They asked for it.
So
They don't
they
want to come back until at
Okay.
least,
Okay.
right. And we can work around without them till September.
Mhm.
But as far as everybody else, they're supposed to be in with a new fiscal year.
So I guess one of the questions is, will you be able to provide enough work for them? Or
or do they want to come back? I don't know if everybody wants to come back the hours that they had. I mean, there will be work for them. I
Right.
just have to we have to figure out the 410.
Could you
Right.
talk about the 410? If somebody is scheduled, say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Yes,
then they're off until
10 days.
Monday later, then you have a new cohort that starts on Friday and works for 4 days.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
But
Yeah.
then the Thursday is an overlap.
No, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yes, there's an overlap, but it's not there. It's a structured schedule. It's 410, so it is 410, and it's the same crew who work every 4 days, and then the 10 days. But some of them, remember, are part timers. So we'll have somebody who comes in, like one of our part-time reference librarians. She's only there 2 days. Then another part-timer will be in there the next 2 days. So that's part of the 4 team. They're all on the same team. It's
So
only
you
when we need a
basically-
substitute that we have to have a floater.
So is it like you have a team that's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday team, and then a different Monday through Thursday team, and then a different Friday,
Saturday, Sunday.
So some of them
So
are
it
actually
sounds
on
like
the 310, 311.
It's all based. It's very complicated. It's a complicated schedule, but they're all scheduled only to work, and they only see the same people every week. They don't mix or mingle with anybody else.
What's the rationale for the 10 days?
If there's an infection, they're quarantined for 10 days. They don't come in, and the infection could manifest in those 10 days.
Okay, got it. As opposed to 14 days, which is the normal quarantine.
Right.
Well, you probably have symptoms within those.
Within the 10 days, and then we quarantine them. Right. The whole team would have to be quarantined.
Right, yes, I know that.
Yeah. But it functions. It gives you an extra layer of safety or assurance that.
No. You have to have teams.
So I don't know. I mean, we're going to look at see what we have to do in July, because if July 1st is our new fiscal year, first of all, we don't know what the money's going to be like.
Right.
And then how to have them come into work to earn their salaries or not. The other thing,
there are a couple of people who have written some other things in the chat.
oh, let me look.
Do you want to say what they are?
I'm looking. Okay. Not typically. Okay, Teresa. Not typically any overlap. We can't work 410 and go back to full staff building. Building to full staff and building. It will only work if we continue to work off-site. That's March. Yeah. So they're talking about working off-site, which is going to be interesting.
Well, places that are on site, they have like an A team and a B team, and they'll work for 3 days, and then the other, group will work for 3 days, and then they just rotate that way in businesses. I know. So that's we'll cross that bridge.
So I'll have to work with the department heads to find out how we can work so some can stay home and some can come in, and then some will work their hours at home, and then see how it's structured at home for the clerks to see what they do at home.
Is there enough work that can be done from home?
There are some things they can do, like register library cards. Yes, there are some things. Not everything. They can take some courses online, but mostly they can register library cards. They can check some lists of fines and things like that to sort through, notify patrons.
Can you
Billing.
move forward any kind of mandatory training? Or have you done that already? Like, I don't know, is the sexual harassment training annually or?
It's annually, and not everybody's taking it, and it's due in October, so they have to
And
do
it's
that.
an hour.
It's an hour. Yeah, 1 hour. Yeah.
There's no 40-hour course?
No. And they have done, believe me, it feels like 40 hours every time.
Right.
And they have
Right.
done some other training, but with Evergreen.
The webinar
Right.
on with the lawyers felt like 40 hours.
40 hours, yeah. There are two other things. One is I have to fill the benefits position.
Yes.
Part-time
Right.
benefits, but
Yes,
I've just canvassed civil service, and by tomorrow I'll know if everybody said no. 2 have said no, 4 have not responded at all. And once that happens, I can fill that. There's one other item. Pam, can I mention this?
Sure.
Okay, I sent this to Pam this morning. I sent her a letter. This is about me. I said, "Dear Pam, it has become clear that over the past 3 years, there have been many philosophical differences between myself and several board members as to the administration and operation of the library. When I was hired over 13 years ago, the board entrusted the mission of the library to me, and the library has thrived and continues to be a cornerstone in the Chappaqua community. But over the past 3 years, the dynamics of the board have changed, and it's become increasingly difficult to comply with the wishes of specific board members, which hamper or deter the work of the library. It is therefore with great regret that I have decided to retire earlier than anticipated. My last day at the library will be August 4th, 2020. The Chappaqua Library is one of the best libraries in Westchester, let alone the state of New York. I hope you find a new director who, despite the current board situation, will continue in support of the community it serves. It's been a privilege and honor, and I'm very proud of everything I've done here. Thank you."
Thank you, Pam. We'll miss you a lot,
Oh,
but good luck.
thank you. Teresa, I'll send you that for your minutes.
Oh, Pam. I hate to see you go.
No, that's okay. Everything changes, Teresa. Everything changes.
I know.
But I have to hire a benefits person because I'm the only one who knows right now. So that's top priority before I go.
All right. Is there anything else in your report that you'd like to talk about?
No, I just want to say curbside pickup. Everybody loves it, but thank you. Thank you. And Maggie, thank you and good luck. And thank you so much for your time, your 5 years.
Thank you, Pam.
All right.
I had a question about
yes.
the staff furloughs. I assume that like the student and adult pages don't have any benefits, but what about the custodians and the
Part-time? No, they're part-time. They don't have benefits.
Okay.
Nobody on that list has benefits.
And I want to ask you another question, which maybe is moot, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
Have you considered, especially if you can't really reopen the library fully at this point, and they don't have enough work for some of the full-time staff, have you considered furloughs of any of the full-time staff? And if so, have you thought about the program that is offered by the state DOL called Shared Work?
Shared work. I know about it, but we haven't looked at having to furlough full-time staff yet. But I know about shared work, but I've got to be careful about civil service. You know, it's always in the way. We're not union, so I have nothing about that, but civil service, you got to watch what you can do with that.
Okay.
We even talked at one point about sharing staff among the 38 libraries. And civil service was like, no. Because what happened is, remember, some libraries closed for construction, and like Scarsdale was closed. It's been closed for 2 years, except for their little thing. Mount Kisco is closed, and we asked if some of the staff could go to other libraries because they were trained, they knew the system, and could they work at other libraries? And civil service said absolutely not. It was kind of, that was, you know, thinking outside the box, but you're relying on what you can do with the state and the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would also just like to say that I'm deeply sorry that you've chosen to retire at this time. I'm sure that you have excellent reasons, but I think it is a tremendous loss to the library and to the town to lose you at this time. You've been an amazing director. I think you've gotten incredibly good things done, and it is a huge loss to the community.
Oh, thank you. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Well, in light of Pam's announcement, I'll be talking to everyone and, how we will be proceeding with civil service and hiring committee that will probably include board members, community members. So we'll be discussing that and set something up because we need sort of a civil service, but a search committee.
And I'll
to
give
go
you
through
the
that.
contact information for who you have to contact in civil service.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pam.
Sure.
All right. I'd like to open the meeting up to public comments and questions. I see a few chat things. I don't know if we've opened up yet. I can't
Nothing
tell who
new.
they are.
Nothing new.
So those chats are not new. Those three
No.
things I see.
Mm-mm.
You already
Okay.
addressed those.
Well, I thought they disappear. They add up. They're cumulative. Okay.
They're cumulative. Yeah.
I guess. All right. So no public comments or questions.
I don't see any hands raised. So nope.
Okay. Any other comments or questions by the board? Oh, there's Teresa talking.
We will miss you, Pam. You've done a wonderful job. Thanks, Teresa. I'm not leaving yet. I'll still see you like this week or next, whenever you're on 410.
Right. All right. Any other comments from the board? All right. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8:51 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
We have to vote on that.
Oh, yeah? Okay, you're right.
We have to have a motion. So
Let's
do you
have a
wanna-
motion.
I'll move that we adjourn the meeting at 8:51 p.m.
Thanks,
Second.
Ronnie.
Second.
Thanks, Maggie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good night. Stay
All
safe.
right.